What did we learn from Bahrain testing? With day 3 in Bahrain complete, we can now stop reacting and start interpreting, because this wasn't about headline lap times. This was all about patterns. It was about who developed the best energy management strategy. Who do you think is going to be the title favourite right now? So just drop it in the comments. Let me know who you think, because at the end of this video, I'm going to reveal my full 2026 predictions, and I'm going to go from 11th to 1st. So let's get into it. What we learned on day 3. Remember the testing patterns that I've talked about in previous podcasts. Day 1, it always gives you direction. Direction for days 2 and 3. Day 2 gives you the confirmation, and then day 3 is your clarity, clarifying everything. And here's what day 3 confirmed. First, long run consistency is separating the contenders from the pretenders. We saw multiple teams complete meaningful race simulations. There were no glory laps, not soft tyre show runs, actual high fuel, multi-stint structured laps led by Charles Leclerc in the SF26 Ferrari. And what stood out? Well, a number of lessons. First lesson, stability under fuel burn. The 2026 regulations amplify balance sensitivity, lighter chassis, revised aero mapping, and more aggressive energy deployment calibration is important. And if your platform stability shifts as the fuel comes off, you don't just lose lap time, you lose predictability. Therefore, confidence in the car's reactions. As we have seen for a number of teams, this is making it difficult for drivers to get into a rhythm. Second lesson, correlation matters more than speed. Several teams were not chasing the fastest lap, they were chasing repeatability. And the team that got to this stage in testing looked calm in the garage, and that was the likes of Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes and McLaren. Third lesson, the midfield. It is tight between Haas, Williams, Racing Bulls, Alpine and Audi. In fact, the time spread over the race simulations is significantly closer than previous regulation resets. But here's a catch. Not all consistency is equal. Some of these teams were consistent because they were just slow. In other words, they weren't able to get beyond correlation into a refinement phase. Other teams were consistent because they were stable, taking no risks. In both scenarios, drivers weren't able to test the limits of their cars. Therefore, they were heading into Melbourne still with many questions around reliability and repeatability. And that difference matters. Cadillac, well, as to be expected, they took a cautious yet measured approach to their first testing in F1. Quite impressive, actually. This was to be expected. Aston Martin, however, there is significant concern. So stick around, as I have more to say about my thoughts on it. In summary, what did we learn? Well, we learned stability, not power packs and not aero packages, is the best winning strategy in 2026. So who are winners and who are losers out of Bahrain? Let's talk momentum, because testing creates psychological winners before round 1 even begins. So, in no specific order, McLaren. This was the cleanest 3-day program in the paddock. No panic runs, no visible instability, strong tyre management on long stints, and critically, no dramatic performance swings. That's championship architecture. Ferrari pushed aero development harder than most, and the car didn't bite back. That's massive. Aggressive development without destabilization tells you their baseline is strong. Mercedes, well, very controlled, very deliberate, not chasing headlines, chasing data. And when Mercedes operate like that, they're usually building something sustainable. Now, who is under pressure based on past or expected performance? I know this will upset some, but Red Bull, they had high mileage, good execution, but there's a visible gap between their peak performance and long-run comfort. Under a new power unit structure and regulation shift, that integration curve matters. The performance ceiling is high, but the setup isn't as stable as previous years, and that's unusual for Red Bull, which brings us to talk about the problem with Aston Martin. This is where things get interesting, focusing solely on the car. Aston Martin didn't look slow. The car looked unsettled. There were visible corrections mid-corner, rear instability on throttle, and more importantly, the operating window looked narrow. Under 2026 regulations, efficiency maps are more sensitive to aero balance shifts. If your aero platform moves as fuel burns down, you are chasing setup all the time. And chasing setup in Melbourne, where grip evolves rapidly, Well, it's dangerous. Albert Park rewards confidence, not nervous cars. Aston have potential, but right now they don't have predictability. And predictability is going to win races. Melbourne. Melbourne will be the real test. Bahrain was just a data circuit. Melbourne will be a stress test circuit. Albert Park demands strong traction zones, curb compliance, stability under braking, confidence through fast direction changes. A peaky car in Bahrain will be exposed in Melbourne. Teams with wide operating windows will adapt quickly in first practice. What of teams still experimenting with baseline? Well, they're going to be on the back foot immediately, and lap times and counts will be the indicator. And remember, first impressions in a regulation reset year shape development direction. Teams that arrive at Melbourne understanding how to achieve stability, manage energy deployment, and extend operating windows are most likely, if not guaranteed, to dominate Melbourne and the next 4 rounds. Although not impossible, this is going to make it difficult to chase them down over the remaining season. Melbourne isn't just round 1. It is the signal amplifier for this season. So, after 3 days of Barcelona shakedown and 6 days of Bahrain pre-season testing, here is how I see 2026 panning out. I'm going to go 11th to 1st. So let's do it. Now, remembering, this is all based on patterns. It's not the hype, right? It's not the hype that we heard prior to shakedown and prior to Bahrain. In looking at my order, 11th to 8th, these are the teams I think are still searching for some aerodynamic efficiency and hybrid optimization with their power packs. The performance gap here is more structural than operational. So there's still some work to do for these teams for them to be competitive. In 11th spot, Cadillac. They have had a really good introduction into F1, but I still think that there's a lot for the team to learn, and this is that year to learn. So they are in last place. 10th, based on current patterns of performance, Aston Martin. I've spoken about them already. 8th, Audi. I just don't think their performance showed that they should be any higher. 8th, Alpine. Probably could be unlucky to be here, but again, I didn't get their confidence. I didn't see the confidence in the vehicle compared to the next 3 teams. 7th to 5th. Well, this is really tightly packed midfield where race execution, not the raw speed, that is going to determine who takes the points. In 7th, Racing Bulls, for no other reason than it's so tight that I think just having Arvid in there, a little bit of an experience, may not help them this year. 6th, Haas, showing great improvement. Ollie Behrman is showing significant confidence in the machine, and Ocon too. 5th, Williams. They would have benefited from more testing, but still they turned up with a good car and they got good laps in. I think that they will improve through the year, but right now I have them in 5th. Right, our top 4, the important top 4. 4th, Mercedes. They've had structured growth curve. They have early podium potential. It all comes down to, again, how they manage energy. Fastest car isn't going to win. 3rd, Red Bull. They got a high ceiling, but still solving some integration consistency. If they nail that after Melbourne, then I think that they have a chance of finishing higher, much higher, if not winning. 2nd, Ferrari. Unexpected, but they have been aggressive, they have been stable, and they are showing a significant level of confidence in their development of this car. So much so, they are experimenting with new aerodynamic solutions. But again, first, I think is McLaren. Not because I'm Australian, just because I think they had the most complete testing program across all of the days. They were balanced, predictable, calm, and in a regulation reset, understanding your car first is everything. I think they're in the best position to get the best results in the first 5 races. Remember, testing doesn't tell you who wins the championship. It tells you who understands their platform first. And after day 3, the picture for me was clearer. But Melbourne decides the truth. I hope you enjoyed this rapid review of what we learned from Bahrain testing day 3. As a small YouTuber, your views, likes and comments are important to me. I appreciate the engagement and feedback as it helps me to get better at bringing you Formula One updates in a way that you enjoy. I do have one favour to ask you, and that is if you want to show your support to my small channel, please hit that subscribe. This will not just ensure you don't miss an episode, it will help me to continue to bring bigger and better analysis to Formula One as it evolves through this new regulation era. Finally, be sure to check out my next video that explores how Aston Martin has got it so wrong. Who do you have as 2026 World Champion right now? Be sure to drop your comments below. The season hasn't started, but the signals are already there. If Bahrain has shown us anything, it's that Melbourne is going to be exciting. I'm Nathan. Thanks for tuning into All Motorsports Podcast. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you haven't already. Also, check out this video, and I'll catch you again in the next one. Cheers.